misogynist voted for Donald Trump. Not everyone that voted for Donald Trump was a misogynist.
I agree. We live in a democracy. People spoke. This is what people wanted. I vehemently disagree with the decision that Americans made.
Was everywhere. She talked to everybody, and people didn't come out. I don't know why, and it doesn't even matter. He's now the president. I'm still not going to say his name.
The View is all dressed in black for the Democrats' funeral party. Not only are these overprivileged women having a classic meltdown on their most viewed episode ever, they've started eating their own. From Sunny Hostin blaming conservative women and Latinos to Kathy Griffin blaming a pop singer for her presidential candidate's loss. This is definitely the most Democrat thing ever. And in today's video, we'll be dishing out the menopausal meltdown each and every person in The View had after Trump's explosive win. Keep watching.
The sentiments, Joy, one of the first thing I wanted to say for anyone that needs an example of when the person you voted for does not win, you do not say the system must be broken or that it was rigged. You say it is what it is, and you show up anyway. And I want to commend all those people that voted, because you sometimes hear people say, well, it didn't matter. No, it did matter. That was still your currency. That was still your power. And people turned out. Now, if you didn't vote, you really don't have a say in the conversation, so you can go ahead and sit down. But for the rest of you, and then a lot of what I think about is what I always tell my kids when things go on. You feel what you feel. Everyone has different emotions. Some people got what they wanted. A lot of people didn't. And you feel anything that comes up, and then you turn around and you say, let's look at the tapes. Let's see what we did. Let's see how we continue to fight for the people that we care about. And you take one step in front of the other. And so here we are today, and I still feel that optimistic because I feel arm in arm with so many people who agree with me. And I'm not going to stop marching. So
I like this pep talk, Coach Haynes. Listen, is it the outcome I wanted? No, but we live in a democracy. I have my vote. Millions of people cast their votes did. And what's important to me is this. Tens of millions of Americans, our friends, our neighbors, our family members, voted for Donald Trump. We disagree with him. I know we all do at this table, but they are good, decent people who are patriots and love this country. And I can't speak to what drove them to the conclusion of being with him, but I think it is a moment for us to listen to each other, to hear each other, express what our concerns are. I've spent the last 4 years doing that, and also listen to people who are with him, because this is a country that there is truly more that unites us than divides us. I know it doesn't feel like that for many people in this moment, but we need to bring down the temperature, the name calling, the demonizing. Let the other side, if they want to do that, they can do it. But I think it is a moment to listen to the voters. And this, I have to say, I've always thought he could win. I thought in the final stretch she might eke it out. I didn't expect it to be this resounding. And
actually, it is resounding. Resounding more than their liberal minds can ever comprehend. And it's not because Sunny Hostin is saying this with all of her heart. She's saying this with a jolt of grief and a sense of defeat surging through her. And very soon, you'll notice the change in her mood and tone as she continues speaking.
I think there are some lessons from it. I think we forget about rural America. I think the working class feels left behind. They feel like the powerful, the elite only care about them and their power. And he spoke to them. We may not have liked his words, but they turned out for him. I mean, the map was, it was beyond Reagan what we saw last night. And I think we need to start listening more about the concerns of everyday Americans who feel like this system is failing.
When Reagan won, I remember the whole map was red.
Yeah.
It was pretty red last night.
I don't know. I'm profoundly disturbed. I think if you look at the New York Times this morning, the headline was America makes a perilous choice. I think that in 2016, we didn't know what we would get from a Trump administration, but we know now. And we know now that he will have almost unfettered power. And so I worry not about myself, actually. I don't worry about my station in life. I worry about the working class. I worry about my mother, a retired teacher. I worry about our elderly and their Social Security and their Medicare. I worry about my children's future, especially my daughter, who now has less rights than I have. And I remember my father telling me many, many years ago that I was the first person in his family to enjoy full civil rights. And now I have less civil rights than I had when he told me that. So again, I'm profoundly disturbed that the 14th Amendment of the Constitution did not prevent someone who participated in an insurrection from becoming president of the United States.
Yeah, propaganda and mudslinging on opposition is what anyone would do if their favorite candidate didn't win. The January 6th insurrection she cited wasn't orchestrated by Trump, but by fellow Americans who were tired of the Democrats' unfavorable disposition to things. That's what this is about.
I disagree.
All right.
I think that I'd like to reframe the conversation. I think Bernie Sanders is wrong. I think the more relevant question actually is what is wrong with America? I think what is wrong with our country that the Republican Party would choose as a candidate and support a candidate who is an insurrectionist, who is an election denier, who is someone who was twice impeached, a 34-time convicted felon, someone who has been accused of alleged sexual misconduct by 26 women, found liable for sexual abuse. What is wrong with this country that they would choose a message of divisiveness, of xenophobia, of racism, of misogyny, over a message of inclusiveness, a message for the people, by the people, of the people.
not
That
just
is what the problem is.
Republicans.
It's
You
the
won the
Republican
popular vote.
Party.
But can
and what's wrong
I
with
say
America?
something before we can do the second?
Literally, these women has a lot to say and blame. Let's hear what others has to say.
The Democrats are the ones. They are the party that cares for the blue collar
Exactly.
voter. The Democrats are the ones who put in Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, union protection,
ACA.
unemployment insurance, and Obamacare. The Republican Party doesn't give a rat's patootie
Well,
about
clearly
it.
they didn't
Come
convince the
on.
voters of
So
that.
all I can deduce is that it's the messaging. It didn't get through to people. They're not paying attention. That's all.
Yeah,
because the Democrats have always been for the working people.
Exactly. And the Republicans
As long
don't
as
care
I'm on
about
I
it.
think
planet.
the
Economy's gonna
message of
crash
the
under
Democrats
Trump.
sounded elitist. You don't have value in the society.
They
if you don't have a
sounded
college
that way, but when
degree.
you look at the
But
proof,
that's-
Yeah,
they weren't.
but Joy,
no
it's
one was saying
condescending.
that
It's
voter.
On the
condescending.
Democratic side.
There is
What's
a
condescending?
the way that the left speaks to its voters. It really
A
is.
message of joy and inclusiveness?
No, the message of not being
just said, "What's wrong
educated,
with
being
America?"
dumb, and what's wrong with America.
Who said that?
Sonny just did.
What is wrong with
Joy,
America?
my
We-
point
okay,
here
but
is
that's
that
very
that's not what
introspective.
Kamala Harris said.
No. But
That's what I'm saying.
my point is, I don't blame Joe Biden. I don't blame Kamala Harris. Go back as far as you want. I blame a messaging within the Democratic Party.
You don't blame the Republican
Can I just
Party at
finish
all?
my point, please? I obviously have a problem. Anyone has a problem with Donald Trump. The bigger question should be, yes, Sonny, why did they vote for him?
Yes.
In sweeping.
they need to be introspective.
No, we need to be introspective. If we voted for
They
Kamala
chose
Harris,
not
we
to
need to
vote
say
as offering.
what didn't resonate with the voters. Do you know what didn't resonate with the voters? When they were saying we don't feel safe and the left focused on defund the police and bail reform.
Yeah.
When they said
They
we're
also-
worrying
they
about
also
Can I just
focused on
finish
gun
let me
control.
just finish real quickly. When they were focused on
It's only
renaming
an hour show, ladies.
Joy, when they were focused on renaming schools, there were people saying, hey, students are destroying colleges. I paid for that. I sent them there. They can't learn. And everyone apologized for it and didn't want to attend to it. They also denied the border was a crisis and kept saying, no, it's fine. This is not a...
There was a border bill, though. There was a
the
border
11th
bill.
hour
Yes, but
3
Joy, my
years into
point
the
is they
Biden
screamed and
administration.
screamed and screamed. They didn't vote for him because he's a racist or a misogynist. They voted because they needed help in their everyday lives.
but Sarah, they
made
voted-
the majority of
how
this
do you know
country
that?
because
There's a lot of-
every stat coming out on the people
Yeah.
willing to self-reflect are showing these.
Oh, wait, they're going to say I'm a racist and a misogynist in the exit poll?
You
I don't
really think
so.
74 million
Joy,
people are racist?
Who's gonna say that?
Every racist and misogynist voted for Donald Trump. Not everyone that voted for Donald Trump was a racist and misogynist.
I agree with that.
Everyone swept. They swept every category, and the reason they did is to say, hey, guys, no excuses this time.
Yeah.
Look,
they lost everything.
There's
A
still half
country
the
that
country
allows
that
its
doesn't agree with
environment to be
him.
ravaged, its children to be shot, its wealth to be hoarded, its worker to be exploited, its poor to starve, its cops to murder.
So you think
It's a
America's the
country
problem?
in trouble.
It's
a country in
America's the
trouble.
problem.
In this earlier episode, here's Hostin citing women's rights and all. And her points all borders around reproductive rights and all that woke junk. But has she actually thought about the fact that maybe, just maybe, all women and men want better futures for themselves and their children? The children that they chose not to abort? Have they even considered for a minute that there are a lot of other issues besides women's reproductive rights?
System is now at risk. I think
No fluoride for anyone.
Yeah, economists have made clear that he's going to increase the debt by $7.75 trillion. I'm worried about mass deportation and internment camps, and I'm also worried about Elon Musk warning Americans to prepare for temporary hardship. I'm surprised at the result, but I'm not surprised. As a woman of color, I was so hopeful that a mixed-race woman married to a Jewish guy could be elected president of this country. And I think that it had nothing to do with policy. I think this was a referendum of cultural resentment in this country.
Well, I think it, I think it has to do with a lot of things, that being one of them. I'm obviously very disappointed. I'm very sad. I was at the Kamala Harris headquarters yesterday in Washington, and it was a very sad scene. The mood turned immediately, and I tell you, there's a quote I get a lot of inspiration from, and it's a quote that I read when I was reading about John F. Kennedy, and it says, "Whether I am on the winning or the losing side is not the point with me. It is being on the side where my sympathies lie that matters." And that, to me, brought me a consolation and inspiration this morning, because I have no regrets.
Yep.
I worked hard as hell to elect the first Black Asian woman president. History slipped through our fingers again. I worked hard as hell for Donald Trump not to be president. But today, unlike Donald Trump and his followers, I acknowledge that he won. I hope for the best for our country, and I make a commitment to our LGBTQ, to our immigrants, to our elderly, to our young girls, to the women, that we will not stop fighting. We can be sad today. Today we can be sad. Tomorrow we stand up and we continue. We have every right as Americans, because we love this country, because this is the most exceptional country in the world, we have the right and the duty to speak up and denounce abuses of power, to be vigilant. And so I invite all Americans to do it. But we are doing what they didn't do. We are recognizing they won.
Number.
Well, I want to dig further into the demographics, because Black women tried to save this country again last night. 92% of Black women voted for the vice president. You have Latinas in the 70 percentile voting for the vice president. What we did not have is white women who voted about 52%, right, for Donald Trump. Uneducated white women, is my understanding. You have Latino men, actually, voting more for him, and you have and Black men was not the story. We're not the story here, because they voted almost 80% for the vice president.
Right.
So why do you think that uneducated white women voted against their reproductive health freedoms, and why do you think Latino men voted in favor of someone that's going to deport? Says he's going to deport the majority of his community.
White women like being called uneducated white women.
By the way, most of the women that I know that voted for Trump have bachelor's and graduate degrees, or are smart stay-at-home mothers, or have been successful without attending college. They're not illiterate or ill-informed, as she puts it. So what is she saying? LOL, absolutely no self-awareness. Maybe white women don't like being called uneducated.
I think the
But that's what
economy
the-
matters,
that's what
national
the- that's what
security
the poll
matters.
said.
But when you put people in these boxes, I think that's a takeaway from this race.
We have to look at the demographics of it.
And it's interesting, the electorate overall, even though the country's been diversifying for decades, the country, the voting public actually got a little bit whiter. Because a lot of voters of color decided not to show up. They didn't think there was anything in their interest to do it. And look, people can vote on anything they want. They can vote because they like the color of someone's hat, or because of reproductive rights, or because of the economy. Any of those things can play in. And if you looked at this election purely through the lens of what's the economic situation in the country, you would have said there's no way the incumbent party can win. If you looked at it purely from the personal attributes of the candidates, you say there's no way that Donald Trump can win.
Right.
But people make these judgments, and they make them in complex ways. And sometimes people vote against their own self-interest in some narrow areas, or even some broad areas, just because. And this is just a country that is in a kind of a funk. Very angry in some ways, divided in some ways, I think united in other ways. And I think this was actually a moment of remarkable unity at the end of the day, in terms of how an election can speak. This was a statement.
Well, Rick, I wanted to ask you a little bit about the gender gap. You kind of alluded to that. So one other question that pops to mind is independents accounted for a larger share of voters than Democrats.
Yeah.
They tied with Republicans in turnout. So once again, independents showed up. What happened to Democrats?
Yes.
Well, here's a quick answer to that question. Democrats lost because they lost people who worked for them. The party became more and more split from workers and relied too much on activists instead of voters. I turned on MSNBC after the election results came in, and this is exactly what I saw. This really was a historic, flawlessly run campaign. She had Queen Latifah, who never backs anyone up. Her voice was like that of every famous person. She had the Taylor Swifties and the Bayhive. In that little time, you couldn't have run a better effort. Of course, it's true that inflation has hurt leaders all over the world. That doesn't mean Joe Biden couldn't have done anything to fix the issue, though. He could have taken action against price gouging sooner, pushed for taxes on huge business profits, and more.
Women's health care and abortion is specifically was on the definitely one of the cries from the Democratic Party. They were really banking on it, I think, and only 14% of Americans voted for that particular thing. Why do you think women didn't turn out for that?
I think
After having some kind of epiphany and realizing calling women uneducated was wrong, Sunny Hostin later tried to take back her controversial statement.
That I asked you before, I said uneducated white women. It's non-college educated white women per the polls. But Republicans took...
But it was too late by then because what she said had registered deep in the minds of viewers. Not only did people heavily criticize Hostin for this wild statement, a lot others are already calling for a petition online to cancel the show. Here's a tweet from a user at Wanderlust_1916 saying, "Let's sign a petition to cancel The View."
We said to people, vote. We didn't tell people who to vote for.
Right.
We just said go out. Well, yes, but I did not.
Yeah, I did.
Because I wanted to make sure people exercise that right. Too many people.
One who steals has no right to complain when he is robbed. Whoopi Goldberg says she didn't go out to vote while expecting others to. So she shouldn't even be complaining that her candidate didn't win. If that petition to end The View really kicks up, would you join others to sign it and put an end to its woke propaganda on TV? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Click on the video on your screen to watch the complete list of American celebrities who threatened to leave after Trump won.